Hello, are we live? I think we are live, right?
I think we're live. Ishan, I can hear you nice and clearly.
Thank you for the feedback, Tim. So, um, thank you very much. I'm not sure we should wait a little bit or we should just, kick off everything. I think people are still joining, but let's just kick off and, whoever will join, then they're most welcome to join afterwards. Anyhow, I'm going to give a brief introduction about myself and the SAT. So basically, I'm Ehsan Ravari from SAT. We are the local distributor of Cellebrite here in Dubai and in the region. I'm very proud to be partners with Cellebrite for several years. And as basically Cellebrite is well known as the leader in mobile forensics, nowadays they have expanded into computer forensics as well with the acquisition of Blackback. And today we are here to talk about their solutions, particularly the Cellebrite Inspector. And we have here with us the solutions engineer and basically the master of the solutions from Cellebrite, as I'd like to call him, Mr. Tim Thorne. And yes, so Tim, I think I've spoken too much, and I'll lead the stage to you so you can continue from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Ishan. Yeah, I don't like that. I'm the master of nothing, but that's very kind. Hey, welcome everyone. I noticed a couple of people still joining, so we'll start slowly, and others will be joining as we go. We have a session today where we're going to talk about or focus mainly on some of the computer forensic and remote collections that have come to Cellebrite recently with the recent acquisitions of technology and new tools that they've brought to the market just this year. In fact, just a few weeks ago, some of the things I'm going to talk to you about. You guys, I know, will have a really good knowledge of the fact that Cellebrite have been around for a long time in the mobile device market, and the acquisition and decoding of mobile device data is something Cellebrite have been doing a long time. And in fact, they came to this market because they brought a tool out which helped mobile phone sellers, people who are actually selling mobile phones. They brought a tool out to assist people upgrade from old mobile phones to new mobile phones, because there was a period of time where people didn't want to upgrade because they would lose all their contacts and they would lose all of their messages and such like. And it wasn't until Cellebrite came up with this clever piece of equipment that enabled mobile phone retailers to say to customers, come in, bring your old handset, we can take all of the data off there and put it on a new handset for you, so you don't have to worry about typing out all of your contacts again and that sort of thing. So that gave a boost to the industry, and they were able to start selling new mobile phones every year, every 2 years to customers who previously been slow to upgrade. But since back then, I'm talking about 2003-ish, that sort of time, since then, we have a lot of experience of taking that data, and rather than putting it onto new handsets, we put it into analysis software and reporting software. And as you know, the whole industry's come a long way. And we are probably seen in the mobile phone data collection and analysis area as number one in this. And we have many thousands of customers across the globe benefiting from these solutions. What most of us, a lot of people don't realize, is that we actually have a huge amount of experience, customers, and coverage in the corporate sector as well. And recently we have been boosting and strengthening our corporate team, and we now have a big specialist team who are delivering products, solutions, and support specifically designed for the corporate environment as opposed to law enforcement and military. And this is growing very rapidly. So the areas that we talk about and the solutions that we cover really work as an overall solution in the digital forensics field, especially, as I say, in what we're talking about here, the private sector. So on I'm sorry, I apologize, slightly complex chart for this time of day, but you can see on the left-hand side, hopefully my mouse is moving. I haven't got a pointer today, unfortunately, but where my mouse is moving now, we have inputs coming from mobile devices and computers. And all along the flow, and the flow goes right out to the last item here over on the right, where it says the review platform that may be used by the reviewing staff. All along the route here, you can see the different functions and additions and what's the word I'm looking for? Value that we can add to the process with some of our technology to give you the best results. So starting back over here on the left-hand side, at the top where my mouse is now, we have mobile phones, and then underneath we have computers. On the mobile phone front, we have a product specifically for the private sector called Mobile Elite. And this product is able to make sure that you get the best read from your mobile devices, because it's very important that rather than just supporting a device, you understand that the best read is normally a physical or a full file system read. And that is what Mobile Elite, the addition of this technology, can bring you in the mobile phone world. And we'll talk more about that as we go on. So once you have your mobile and computer collection, where my mouse is hovering right now, you then send them into the processing, the decoding and the processing, be that computer evidence or mobile device evidence. You can also at this point add any cloud extraction, because in the corporate environment, we do give you access to our cloud tools. So you can make use of cloud extractions as and when you can get hold of them. And then what this does, after the initial processing, you're then in a position to make some early case assessments. So this is this section here, ECA. This is where we give you the ability to do a high-level intelligence surfing or triage type approach to the evidence you've collected. And then when you're ready to go, you hop to the final stage in the process from the investigator's point of view, or the forensic investigator's point of view. And this is where we have an add-on that's called Legal View. So for both computer and mobile phone evidence, we give you the capability of outputting to things such as relativity short message formats. You see that here, RSNF, or load files, or E01 or L01 format. So these are the main formats supported by all of the review platforms used in the private sector, such as relativity, such as Newegg, such as concordance. All of these formats are what we support with our tools. So this slide just gives you a very broad overview of the whole big picture, if you like, the whole solution that Cellebrite can provide you for mobile phone and computer forensics. What we're going to have a more detailed look about now, you can see I've actually added 2 areas of remote collection. So we will be talking today about your capability that's available in the private sector to collect remotely from mobile phones and from computers. Primarily, these tools are designed to help investigate in these areas here that you see on the screen: e-discovery, employee misconduct, tongue-tied, employee misconduct, and IP theft. These are the areas that consume the corporate sector as far as their investigation goes. And these are the areas of investigation that rely heavily on digital evidence. And when you look at some of the news headlines, some of the recent news headlines in this area, be it Shell or Walt Disney, you see that there's vast amounts of money often involved in these types of investigations. And the necessity to protect corporate assets is well, it doesn't need explaining, really, does it, when you're talking about those sums of money. So let's talk briefly about the current state of affairs. Cellebrite support computer forensics now, and they support computer forensics with 2 primary tools. The first one is Digital Collector, and as the name suggests, this is the tool for collecting digital evidence from Windows and from Mac computers. Cellebrite Inspector is the tool for inspecting those collections. It's our main analytical tool for computer-based evidence. And we support all sorts of file systems, all sorts of permutations of operating systems, media, external media, all sorts of file formats, so that you can DD files, EO1, LO1, all of the usual image formats are supported. So this is the tool that we rely on for assessing, analyzing, and reporting on digital evidence from computers. There are other tools at Cellebrite that you may be familiar with already that sort of operate in this space, and you will see, and in what is a really exciting roadmap, you will see how there's going to be more integration and more capability coming to tools such as Physical Analyzer, which you'll be familiar with as the sort of gold standard in mobile device decoding of data. So actually presenting the data from mobile device collections in human readable format and applying some analysis to it. That's what Physical Analyzer does so well at the moment, but it also has the capability and is going to have increased functionality in respect of computer forensics. Pathfinder, if you're not familiar with Pathfinder, this is a great tool for multiple device or multiple suspect analysis, where you want to make links, where you want to do complex analysis of different types of evidence, and do such things as facial recognition, image categorization, similarity of images, all of that really clever AI technology that is coming into this tool is available to you inside Pathfinder now. But as things stand at the moment, the two tools wrapped around the outside here, Digital Collector and Inspector, remain the key tools in respect of computer forensics at Cellebrite. Quick look at the roadmap. It's full, you can see, and this is just computer forensics, so this doesn't talk about any of the other Cellebrite offerings. But you can see right now we have already caught up with Big Sur support for the artifacts you'll see in the latest Mac operating systems. You're seeing a massive change in indexing performance because we're changing our database to go from Elasticsearch to the SQLite database. We're adding simple things like the ability to image directly into Inspector. So the ability where you may not need to use Digital Collector, this gives you the ability to query straight into Inspector. And you can see that obviously in the Mac area, we remain the leaders in this area, and we continue to develop and push hard for development against all of the Mac technology, because Apple have a very nasty habit, as we know, of changing their hardware, changing their software very quickly. And we've already added some stuff to the recent release, which was only beginning of the week, last week, of Digital Collector to support live collections on M1 Macs, etc. Coming in the next quarter and into the first quarter of 2022, some really interesting stuff, including the ability to boot M1 Macs. No one else is doing this right now. So this will be something that will be a huge benefit on the Mac front. But of course, we focus massively now on Windows artifacts, performance of the analysis tool Inspector, and then this box here where it says Insights. This is going to be the key to many investigators, the ability to surface quickly across the insights of the evidence that's in front of you to get to the stuff that supports your investigation. And then in the sort of distant future into 2022, you'll see that there are some really exciting things here. We're going to be slightly vague in this area because of obviously competition analysis and things such as that. But things such as rapid artifact addition for Windows and Mac. So again, this is something else that's coming to the tools to make sure that you can get to the evidence as quickly as possible, because the volume and the complexity of evidence is what's slowing down people's investigations right now. We'll be adding triage to the collector tool, more triage. We have a good selection of triage functionality in Digital Collector right now, but in the future, this is going to grow into a really, really flexible and powerful triage tool, so you can, again, get to the evidence you need quickly. Anyway, I could talk for a few hours on what the plans are, but we haven't got time. So let's move on and talk about the main subject of today, which is our new tool for this year, new in 2021 for the corporate sector, new from Cellebrite Enterprise Solutions. Endpoint Inspector is a tool that is used to acquire data from your corporate endpoints, be that across the internal network or your VPN that your company may be running, or indeed across the network that we call the internet. So when people aren't on the corporate network and maybe they're traveling or remote, this is the tool that's going to help you gather that evidence. Why have we done this? Why are we bringing this in? Well, the whole thrust of this tool is to actually help businesses mitigate their risk by giving them the ability to collect, preserve, and interrogate the data that exists, that belongs to them after all, belongs to that organization, but it belongs at an endpoint that they may not be able to actually physically touch for many, many months. So we're giving them a mechanism here to get hold of that data, to analyze it and preserve it, to protect the company. A lot of people, more and more people have been working from home, and COVID, of course, has been an accelerator to that, but it was something that was going on in the industry anyway. Not just in the industry, the whole working environment, more and more people were working from home. And this, many observers would say that this recent terrible time has actually just simply sped up that drive to get more people working from home where possible. And it's proving difficult for companies to get their hands on their assets, to collect from employees' machines. And on top of that, they need to be able to do that without disrupting the work. So, previously people were having to send their hard drives back to their IT department for them to inspect and then wipe and remove dangerous things or inappropriate files, that type of thing. So this is designed to prevent all of that and speed things up. What is kind of neat about Endpoint Inspector is gives you the ability to acquire the data that you want to acquire directly into the analysis tool. So no need to move it around. The collection comes straight into the analysis tool for working on. Why are we doing this? What's super important about all of this is, of course, the fact that people are working away from the office a lot more. There is less supervision. There is less involvement with colleagues between each other. So people are isolated. People have the capability and the time and the security to be maybe using their devices for inappropriate reasons, for theft, for fraud, because they're doing so without someone looking over their shoulder. Even just their colleague or the boss aren't on hand now to do that kind of supervision. So things can go wrong a lot quicker. And so this is where Cellebrite have stepped in with Endpoint Inspector. But the really nice thing, and the thing that separates us from the crowd here, is the fact that not only can we give you the ability to collect from Windows and Mac machines remotely, we're also later this year going to give you the ability to do remote collections from mobile devices. And so that will be a real game changer in the industry. Even mobile devices will be able to force them to give up their data remotely. Okay, what does it look like? How does this work? Well, this is a really high level sort of graphic, sort of showing how the system is set up. So where my mouse is circling right now is you, the investigator, the owner of the system, the boss, maybe the IT department or the investigations department. We're describing that person as the endpoint client. That team could be the endpoint clients. And what happens here is the endpoint client connects to an endpoint server. And the endpoint server can be hosted in the cloud, it can be on your premises, or it could be at another remote location. It doesn't really matter where the endpoint server is. And the endpoint server does not have to be a spectacularly high performance server rack that you're imagining here. It can be a simple Windows machine running the server, because the role of this device here is really to monitor all of the agents that are in the field. So over here on the far right, the three photographs we have here give sort of examples. Maybe we're talking about a remote office in another country or another city, or maybe just on another floor in your building. So that could be one of your endpoints. Another one could be the guy in the middle here who's working from home. And maybe he only comes to the office once a month or something like that. But this endpoint agent can be deployed to his devices working from home. And then finally, the lady at the bottom here, she's traveling. So whether you're in a hotel room, on an aircraft will prove tricky, but whenever you have a connection, the endpoint server will see you. Now, obviously, the example I just gave of aircraft is probably going to be really tricky, because then you're starting to talk about all sorts of bottlenecks on speed, etc. at the moment. I'm sure that'll improve with time. But so wherever these guys are, if they have a connection to the internet, or they have a connection to your corporate network, and the endpoint server can see them, you as the endpoint client can grab the data. And this works in this sort of way. An instruction will go out to the endpoint server saying, give me a list of your agents. Give me a list of the agents that are out there. It will report back with that list of agents, and you as the driver of the system will say, right, I want to connect to 101 because I'm going to do a collection from 101. I'm just using 101 as a made up number in this case. And so what the server does, it sends a message to 101 saying, hey, stand by. You're about to get a request from the endpoint client to give up your data. So that's what happens. And at number 5 on my chart there, the connection is made. And this is what we call a direct connection between the endpoint client and the endpoint agent. And this is where the data comes straight from the client, from the agent to the client. There's a bit of redundancy built into this. So we get something else called a connect back mechanism here. But what this means is, if for whatever reason that first method doesn't work, the endpoint server will then force the endpoint agent to have a connection with the endpoint client, and the data exchange can happen. And then finally, just to give even more redundancy to the system, we have something called a proxy connection. What this means is, if our second route fails, we can actually route the traffic through the endpoint server, so that they had no direct connection to the client is required. So a little bit of a degree of redundancy there, which may or may not prove to be really useful to end users. So what does all this mean? It means a number of things. It means that you have security. You have the ability to control who accesses these endpoints, and those that access the endpoints, you can control which endpoints they have access to and what levels of permissions they have. So you get the full coverage of levels of security depending on the user, depending on the agents you want to connect to. Endpoint Inspector gives you the ability to preview the data, so you don't have to collect everything. You're not going in blind here. You have the ability to have a look at the data so that you can make decisions based on what you see rather than what you think you might see, and waste a lot of time collecting things that are not relevant. You have the ability to collect on or off a corporate network. So what this third box here means is, you have the ability to collect from inside your own local area network, or you can go wider than that and collect while people are off the network. And then finally, you have the ability to do that analysis straight away, because you bring the collection straight into Inspector, which is our normal analysis tool. So you get the full range of analysis capability straight away on the doorstep, ready to go. So this is what you get at the moment. This is we need to remember here that this is our first release. So there are some limitations on the number of agents we support. And these are the sorts of things that are being put into place at the moment while this is a new product, and they will rapidly expand. So don't get too worried about the fact that one endpoint server at the moment will only support 1,000 agents. This will change rapidly with new releases, and there are new releases already in the pipeline ready to come out very soon. So at the moment, one endpoint server will take care of 1,000 agents, and you can collect from 10 endpoints simultaneously. And those 10 collections can be used by, or you can have 3 investigating examiners working on cases using Endpoint Inspector and using the Inspector application at any one time. So 3 examiners, 10 active collections going on at any one time across 1,000 agents. So don't get too hung up. This will change fairly soon. So what I'm going to do now, rather than carry on with slides, what I'd like to do is just see if we can do a live demo, just to make sure that I prefer doing a live demo rather than looking at slides. So I'm going to swap to a different machine here so I can share what I've got here for you. And probably what I'm going to do is just turn my camera off for a second as well when we get there. So just going to share this screen. So this is what you're seeing right now is Endpoint Inspector. This is the forensic tool from Cellebrite right now to carry out endpoint investigations, to normal forensic investigations. And you can see on the screen, I have a lot of different evidence items in my case. Sorry, you're not actually seeing what I should be showing. Let me just move some things around here. And that's a bit of a shame. My pointy arrow doesn't seem to be coming out on what you guys can see. Never mind. If you look over here on the left-hand side, here are all the components in my case at the moment. So I've got an awful lot of different things in here. I have phone images. Make the component list a little bit wider so you can see. I have a Windows memory dump. I have some folders from someone's downloads folder here. I have an iPhone, all sorts of different evidence items here. But in my case, I want to go ahead now and I want to bring in data from an endpoint. So I click on my Manage button and I come down here, and at the very bottom of my list, I can select Endpoint Agents. When I select that list there, do you know what I need to do? I need to change what I'm sharing. That'll help me. So let's do that right now. Let's stop this share and go and share a screen rather than an application. So let's share the desktop one, share. So here we go. So I clicked on Endpoint Agents and a new window opens up, which you can see here is Endpoint Agents. This is my window, which will let me look at the endpoints I have available to me. In this particular case, let's see if my arrow is working. Hooray, it is. Okay, in this particular case, we have two endpoints available, this Mac Mini and this Windows Server machine right now. So if I want to see a little bit more what's the directory of this particular directory listings of this, say this Windows machine, if I click the arrow to the left, it expands out. And I can see now there is a C volume here available for me to inspect. So when I clicked on that, what you will have noticed is that here in this window, because I'm in browser mode, I'm now browsing the directory of that C drive. So I can scroll up and down here. I can drill down into all of the various directories in this on this computer. If I wanted to collect any one of these items, all I need to do is put a little tick in the boxes here that are available for me to do my collection. So this is a way of browsing up and down the file system. I can do some file filtering. So if I wanted to filter across what's on this C volume of this Windows machine, if I hit the file filter button here, right next to the browser button, you can see that Endpoint Inspector is building a listing of the files right now. Now I'm going to apply a filter. And I think one of the easiest ways to demo this is just to say, actually, all I want to see is any file that has a .txt extension. And I just hit the filter button. And there are all my text files. So imagine I wanted, this was the offending file. If I select one of these, down here in this area, I have a viewing window. So I can view in hex, I can view in a strings view, or I can preview the file. So let's go ahead and request this file. And there I have the hex view of this particular file. If I want to go to preview, I simply click the preview button. Now I'm previewing this as a text document. So I can go through and I can check out exactly what it is I'm interested in, and I can identify the files that may be of interest to me, and I can select them. And then when I'm ready to go, all I simply need to do is hit create the collection. And that's how we would go about collecting files, by browsing and filtering with the file filter. The other type of files you may be interested in is called media files. So if I hit thumbnails, what we have here is a whole media view of all of the images on the device that we have selected in thumbnail view. So you can go through and you can identify the files that may or may not be of interest to you and your investigation that way. Now, what I also wanted to show you is how do you actually connect to your license server, because this, as we've already discussed, is a direct connection to these two machines, which, by the way, are somewhere in the US, because I'm based over in Europe. These two machines are being hosted in the US somewhere. So this was a live demo with some machines in the US from which I could go ahead and collect data. How do I control the license server? Let's show you how to do that now, because this was a direct connection, and this is how I go about doing my analysis. So I'm just going to cancel out of that. So imagine the actual piece of evidence has arrived into my window here. I would simply just, if I just wanted to focus on one piece of evidence, all I need to do is remove the ticks from the items of all of the other ones. And maybe we'll just concentrate, just give you a quick flavor if you haven't seen this already. Imagine this is the volume that I've just acquired from my analysis. And maybe I want to, this down here, maybe I just want to look at the media associated with this particular device. I can use all of the functionality in Inspector, the timelines, the reporting, the building of a portable case, filtering, etc. All of the processing and analysis tools are available to me. In this case, I'm looking at media. Maybe I just want to look at the media that has a particular attribute, such as if I run a file filter over here and I ask Inspector just to show me all of the media that has geolocation applied to it, then I can just go ahead and, in the usual way of using Inspector, run those filters. And here you can see I have applied that filter. And now all I'm seeing is pictures that have GPS data associated with them. And I can preview them in the bigger window. I can look at the location data or with the offline mapping that we have. Everything that you're familiar with that Inspector offers you is available to you in the Endpoint Inspector version as well. So let's go back to the controlling of the server. Well, that's done with a simple web browser. So on the screen right now, I have my Chrome application for you guys to see. I've created a shortcut to the to my license server. Here you can see as I scroll down my list, I have Endpoint Inspector as a shortcut. So if I select that, here is the logon to the Endpoint server. Again, this is another machine that's in the US somewhere. So I'm going to log on as Tim. I'm going to enter, if I can remember it, my password and log on. Correct, the typical. Got it wrong, can't remember his password. Let's try again. Okay, log in. There we go. Got it right second time, that's not bad. So this is the interface for Inspector, Endpoint Inspector. This is the license server we're looking at now. Make it a bit bigger. So we keep it nice and clean and tidy so it's easy to manage, because if you get to a situation where you're managing thousands of agents, this is going to be a very busy screen. But you can see in my particular case, we only had 2 active devices. And you saw that when I was using Inspector, there were only 2 devices available for me to get information from. However, there is a 3rd device in my case, which is offline at the moment, so it's not active. And indeed, I know that's not true because that 3rd device is actually a laptop that's on the desk sat beside me, and I still haven't opened the lid on that. So it's not active. I can't collect from it right now. So this is the home screen that we're looking at right now. Let's go and have a look at the user screen. So if I select the user screen from here, This is where I can identify who are the users of my endpoint system. And I can see that there are only a few. I've got an administrator, I've got my colleague Peter in the US, and there's me, myself, as a user. So there are only the three of us as users here. If I come over to the ellipsis right here, this is where I can start to manipulate who has access and what sort of access they have. So I can edit this user's profile. So if I hit edit profile, I can see I can do things like reset passwords, choose roles for the user themselves, and then I can just update those roles here, sort of administrative type work. If I then go back to where we were, back to the users, just click on the link here. And if I come back over, and this time, rather than edit the user's capability, I look at assigning that user agents. So which agents do I want Tim to see? This is where you have control to allocate those agents. So what you can see here is I have access to 3 endpoints. This one here is offline. You can see that it's not got a little green icon next to it. And this is the one I was telling you is on the desk beside me. So he's offline at the moment. And I can see from my notes about that machine, it is a Windows 10 machine that's in France. Now, up here, I can see I've got a Big Sur Mac Mini and an AWS machine, so a machine running in the cloud. These are the ones I have access to collect from right now, because the green is telling me we're good to go with those. So this is where I would allocate my agents as well. If I come down the list a little bit further and come to events, this is where the event logging goes on. Of course, very important to see who's been accessing what, that type of information. That's all recorded for you all the time, so you get good security over who has access, etc. And then finally, the settings button here at the bottom. This is where you can do things like create the configuration agent. So when you have a new machine come on the network and you want to send a configuration file to that agent, so that the agent, to the endpoint, so the agent can be installed, this is where you do it. This is where you get the details of your license, what's supported. So as I said in that slide, 3 concurrent users. And in this particular case, it's still limited to 1,000 endpoints, as I explained. And up here is where we identify the ports that we need open for this activity to take place. So that is Endpoint Inspector. That is you've seen how the inspector itself works. You've now seen the interface as well. I think if there are some questions, you're more than welcome to type them in the box there. I have a few more things I want to talk to you about, and then give you an opportunity to ask some more questions if you'd like to. What I need to do now is just share a different screen so we can go back to our PowerPoint presentation, so that you can mention these other things. So let's hit share again here. So I'm kind of hoping, looks good to me, looks like we're back on that slide that we spoke about a short while ago. And we don't need to cover these slides because I've done this all live for you now, but here these are just how we walk through those screens, and this is a different setup, so you can see different agents in a different test scenario that we had running. Here we can see a lot more of different event logs, inspector, and this is how we would log on when we're running from inspector. And I showed you this again, another slightly different setup here. We went through that. Anyway, so that's Endpoint Inspector. The next, a really important thing that a lot of people are maybe missing out on right now is our remote collections using UFED. This functionality does exist for you right now in the corporate sector. And this is very powerful indeed, because what we have is 2 flavors of the UFED available for our corporate customers. The UFED Touch 2. This is the touch screen, the Windows touchscreen device like a tablet. Or the other flavor we have is the UFED for PC, and this is where you run the UFED software, but on a PC of your choice. And this, generally speaking, is the preferred route for corporate customers, because you can obviously go on to do more things with your data once you've carried out your collection. The Touch 2 gives you the ability to collect data, but the UFED for PC, you could then perhaps run Physical Analyzer on the same computer and do your decoding of the data as well. So it gives you that little bit more flexibility. Of course, I will mention just briefly some of our latest support. We're always pushing the boundaries. I think Cellebrite, it's fair to say, are often leaders in the area of which technology is supported. Currently, we are taking care of full file system reads from the Samsung S21 and S20 ranges. We have this Qualcomm Live, a unique extraction capability. And we're offering all sorts of support for some of these latest high-end Samsung, Huawei devices, including physical extractions for full disk encrypted devices. Slightly outside of the scope that we were talking about today, but it's important just to keep up to date. We have advanced logical from iOS available to you. And the UFED, of course, fully supports full file system reads from the latest iOS versions out there right now. The reason this is important in the corporate sector is because you can have all of that technology available in a remote scenario as well, because what I'm talking about here is something we refer to sometimes as detachable licenses. What this means is you have the ability, imagine you're working, as my slide shows here, in New York, as the head of the investigations department, or whatever your status might be. You could control, say, 100 remote offices. Imagine you had 100 remote offices, but you only really want, say, 20 UFED licenses. So what you could do is you could use Detachable to host those 20 licenses at your headquarters. And then when the requirement came up for usage at one of your 100 remote offices, you can allocate the detachable license out to those offices. And the actual acquisition can be done at that remote office using our detachable license functionality. So here you see the green license file being sent out to the Sao Paulo office up here at the top, and being sent out to the Chicago office here. So the detachable license for UFED for PC and for Physical Analyzer can be sent to those offices for them to do the extraction. And then if you want the analysis as well with Physical Analyzer, can be done remotely. The only restraining factor in all of this is the point number one over here, where my mouse is sort of circling, is the fact that when you send a license out, it does have to remain at that location for a minimum of 24 hours. This is not a big deal. What we find is quite often people will arrange for the license to go for a week or a couple of days. But all you need to do is, once you're finished with the license, you make it available for going back to the headquarters, so it can be reused at another location as and when required. Really, really effective way of managing your licenses and getting the work done. Let's have a quick look. I'm getting some notification about some questions. Let's cover the questions at the end, because we're very close to the end now of the actual presentation. So I just wanted to touch on Mobile Elite. I mentioned it, I think, in the first slide, but Mobile Elite becomes very important when you are concerned with getting the best possible read from your device. In the law enforcement world, we have another offering, which is some of you may have heard of or be familiar with, called Premium. And Premium offers unlocking and enhanced support for reads. What we have to do for the corporate sector is take away the unlocking functionality, but still give you the ability to acquire full file system reads. So this is kind of very useful, because when you consider a lot of those third-party applications do not come out with a standard read by any of the tools. So Telegram, Signal, WeChat, WhatsApp, all examples of some of the apps that you may miss with a bulk standard read. You might need the extra support of Mobile Elite to get those applications. Also, things such as system logs, email, the Android secure folder, all of those, what can be quite revealing sets of data, may not come out with a standard read. So this is why Mobile Elite can turn out to be very powerful for you. And then the other thing that our corporate customers need to be aware of and be made aware of, because I don't think that all of them do understand this, is there are really three routes to your data from your mobile devices. One is the UFED, obviously, the gold standard in collection of data from mobile devices. But Mobile Elite being the second route, because you want to couple up with your UFED read the ability to get a full file system read. That's important. But also you have access to the Cellebrite Advanced Services capability as well, because this isn't just for law enforcement. Many of the people I speak to, they think that this is just law enforcement. That's not the case. So if you have devices that need unlocking and you have the appropriate authority for unlocking those devices, Cellebrite can help with our labs, Cellebrite Advanced Services situation. So three really powerful routes that can pretty much sort out everyone's requirement on the mobile device acquisition and decoding of full file system reads. Just be aware you do have access to all of those. I have a couple of charts here that sort of explain how important it is to get those full file system reads, because giving you a flavor of some of the devices that we support and what level of support. So you can see here that with Mobile Elite, you can get physical reads from the devices in this first row here. You can get full file system reads from these high-end Samsung devices. So you can see the difference that could make to your investigation. And the same is true with iOS devices. The level of support via Mobile Elite definitely improves the quality of the evidence that you're likely to get. Also important not to forget that as a in the corporate environment, you still have access where you have the capability of doing so to grab someone's cloud data. And as we know, most cloud data or cloud data can be extremely important, because a lot of data that we see on our devices as users is not there for long. It's actually only pulled down to the device as and when the user wants to see it, or in some cases just before the machine thinks the user wants to see it, it will be pulled down so that the experience is a much more fast and lively one for the end user. But here we have all of the examples of the type of things that we're talking about: social media, some files, all things about the individual's biography, and of course location information. A lot of this stuff is not going to be on the handset. So this is why we give the enterprise customers the ability to do something called username and password based extractions, or consent based extractions of cloud data. So please don't discount this just because you think that it's only available to law enforcement. That is not the case. This is available to you. We support a healthy number of all of the popular applications. I think we're over 55 of the main applications now. We tend to focus on the key ones, and this is important because it's easy in the what I call the artifacts war to list maybe 70 cloud artifacts, but are they really relevant and important to investigation? Let's be real, and let's focus on the ones where we are going to find good quality evidence. And then Cellebrite are very open about the level of support, because if you take a look in the user manual, we don't just say we will support a particular artifact. We drill down and say what actual categories of data from that supported artifact do we give you. And that's very important, because just to say support and not explain what we get is often frustrating for investigators. So I've kind of, where are we time-wise? So 10:02, that's about right. So that's all I had to present. I don't know whether Eshan, you've got some questions, or I'm looking at the chat box now, see if I can pick some out to answer. Oh, some good questions here, actually. Okay, so when can we expect Endpoint Inspector to support mobile devices? Well, very soon. Definitely by the end of the year, possibly in this quarter that we're in right now. There's some things being ironed out as we speak, and depending on how that goes, it will depend on the sort of number of devices that we can support with the very first release of the mobile device support. So I'm afraid I'm a cautious person, and I would make promises to say you'll have this by the end of the year. Any sooner is a bonus. So think of it like that, but it will be this year, definitely. What solutions do you think the competitors for Endpoints? Yeah, I can do a brief comparison as well. Listen, I think it's important to be honest and clear with this. This is the first release of our solution in this area. And if you go head to head with the guys at Encase or some of the other tools that are operating in this environment at the moment, you may well find that on a feature for feature basis, these tools are have more features. And that is completely the case at the moment, because this is our first offering. We have a fierce roadmap to add all of those features, and I don't think it will be long before we are doing all of what the competitors are doing in this space. So think of this first release as an introductory release. What we see is we think that the whole Cellebrite solution is worth considering when you look at it in line with everything else that we have going on. But also, most importantly, of course, is when we add that mobile support, because no one else, as far as we're aware, has that functionality or capability on their immediate roadmap. So that will be the key defining moment for us once that's out. But at the moment, we have a very powerful tool that can assist with those employee misconduct, those data collection investigations, and such like. Does the increase in the number of agents affect the solution in any way? Well, from my experience, I can't answer that question honestly, because I don't know how that's going to work. What we're looking at, what we wanted to do, and the reason we've done this is we're doing a staged introduction where we will slowly escalate the support of the number of agents, because we wanted to give you guys a product that really works, rather than one that has a lot of problems, which is another reason why we haven't crammed it full of the features that we have on the roadmap before release. We're doing a staggered approach. So the plan, of course, is it won't affect the solution in any way, and it won't affect the user's experience, the end user's experience, which is crucial. We didn't want the activity of the investigator to impact on the productivity of your employees. So that's why we're taking a gently approach to the number of agents we support. Is there a preferred internet speed? Oh, clearly. At the moment, I couldn't give you what the number is. So much of this will depend on the speed of the pipe that the end user has. So that is a restraining factor beyond our control. The software itself and the design of the way in which we collect the data is designed to make that as fast as is possible with the connection and the pipes that exist. Eshan, I don't know, I can't see any other questions at the moment. Do you have any questions?
I think we had a lot of good questions already.
Yeah.
I can see that someone is raising their hand. I don't know if that is something that we can do from here. Let's see, chat. Okay, so I think, what is it? For more forensics, will the device be able to present to the court of law, under law? Did you see that question, Tim?
Oh, I do now. I do. That's in the chat. Okay. For mobile forensics, will the data? Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is We plan to do this. The collections that come from Endpoint Inspector will be, you'll be able to hash those. So you'll be able to wrap them up in a logical evidence container so that the data there can't be changed. So yeah, forensics is our middle name, if you like. Of course, all of the players in this space, the X-Ways, the FTKs, we are about collecting and preserving evidence in a forensically sound way. So yes, that will be available. Okay, for locked devices, well, this is where you're going to start to have, there will be issues with locked devices, of course, because to get reads from devices, especially in the way in which we're going to be operating in the corporate world, you will have to have these unlocked. Remember, we're not talking about criminal investigations here. We're talking about the investigation of corporate assets. And depending on where you are in the world, what your legislation is and your rights to privacy and your rights as a company to acquire data. This is very important, actually, because this does vary, not even from region to region. Even within Europe, I'm aware of some significant difficulties that some of the Scandinavian countries will have remote collection. As far as I'm aware, every case will need to be looked at on its own merits, and investigators will have to understand the laws in their own region, for sure. Actually, we are dealing with LEAs. So what could be the possibility? Well, once again, it really is down to your legislation in your own country. Collecting data from the cloud, every country seems to have different rules and regulations about that. Some of the countries may consider collecting remotely from devices is going to be different to the legislation that if you physically had the device in your hand. So I can't really advise on that. What we do know is that there's a huge market for the capability to collect data from computers and mobile devices remotely. And many people will want to be doing that. And many people are now doing it already. Don't forget, certainly in the corporate world, also don't forget, very few of these investigations actually end up in criminal or civil cases. The purpose of it is for corporations to be able to investigate their own assets, to investigate their own staff, and deal with things way before they get to that criminal or even that civil prosecution. It's a way to protect, preserve, and analyze their own data rather than to be considering prosecution. So just be aware, don't always judge the functionality of the tool by what the legislation says you can actually use in court, because a lot of the time you might not be ever planning to use your collected data in court. How can we acquire 1,000 terabytes of data remotely? Well, you need a very big connection, and that, as I said, the restriction is obvious. Bandwidth is a problem. Even if you have the fastest fiber in the world, you will struggle to collect that amount of data, which is why Endpoint Inspector is designed for you to focus on the data that is relevant by previewing and triaging. As we go forward, more functionality will come to the tool that will actually give you the ability to set up some automation to identify when bad things have happened at your endpoints, identify when a file arrives that is no longer, which you don't want on your corporate network. And when that file arrives, give you the ability to trigger a collection. All sorts of functionality will come to this. We've recruited some engineers that have been working in this space for a long time. They now work directly for Cellebrite, and we will have this functionality as we go forward. Any solution? Yeah, Cellebrite, we have. You need to be careful when we talk about video enhancing. We need to be careful what enhancing means, and this is a whole different field of expertise than I have. But we do have digital video expertise at Cellebrite, and we perhaps we can take that offline. Eshan will probably be able to give you some advice and some product information. If not, Eshan, I can supply it to you around our video offering, because we have a very comprehensive video offering and we support very many different formats from CCTV, etc. So if you're interested in that, please let us know, because there is a lot of, in the same way that Cellebrite brought on computer forensics, they've actually brought on in a big way video forensics as well.
Yeah, I think you're referring to the Seeker.
Exactly right. I didn't want to mention the name in case that confused people, but yeah, you're right. It is Seeker. Is our specialist collection of tools to assist with collection, analysis, and reporting on video evidence.
We'll share this information about the Seeker also with this
Thanks,
particular
Eshan.
gentleman. Sure.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, it's an in-premise. Yeah, it's his, he's asking if it's an in-premise solution, right? So it's it's on-premise. Yes, you can take it. It's mobile. You can take it, and yeah, but we can take that off, and we can talk about that later on. Yeah. So
yeah,
I think there's no more questions related to this session particularly. What we will do is just for a gentleman, he was asking for law enforcement agencies, and we are going to have a separate webinar for Cellebrite, basically, law enforcement sector. That will be sometime around the 11th of August or 10th of August, if I'm not wrong. And we will certainly invite, all our law enforcement clients, and probably, whoever asked this question from the law enforcement will be invited to this webinar as well, and might be of interest.
that makes sense.
Okay, Tim. Then I would say thank you very much. It was again a pleasure to have you. You have done a tremendous job doing the presentation of these solutions from Cellebrite, and thank you for this support. We hope to have many more webinars with you.
It's always a pleasure, and always grateful for your kind words. So you guys have a great day, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you for participating.